I moved into a non-mobile home yesterday, and there's Sheila, and we are so happy, and more on that to come later. For this content, 3 caveats. You can eat whatever you want, which you already know because you're an autonomous human. I am practicing not caring whether or not you're vegan, and honestly, I really am not caring as much anymore. However, I do care very strongly about factory farming consumption, so please do your research on factory farming and look into where you are sourcing your animal products if you're choosing to eat them. I'm also practicing non-judgment generally in life, and especially with food, and especially because I spent a lot of my life eating a lot of stuff that I could very easily judge past me for. And then I could very easily judge current me for being an asshole about it. So, I think that was just 2. But here we go. I was a very picky eater for most of my life. I was a vegetarian by choice. As a little kid, neither of my parents are vegetarian, although my dad is currently doing veganism and transitioning to eating plant-based. But I chose in kindergarten. I was like, those things were just walking around and eating, and it feels weird to me to walk around and eat them. And there's a Mr. Rogers quote my dad just told me yesterday that says, "I don't want to eat anything with a mother." And so that's pretty much how I feel about it. I also was really picky and am a very controlling type person, and so food became a thing to control and saying, no, I'm not going to eat that, or I won't eat that. And it also became a really physical textural thing of the textures of different foods were really freaking me out, and I had all of these taste aversions and very real reactions. So if you're out there and you're like, broccoli tastes gross to me, I'm here to say, I hear you. I spent most of my life in that same position, or literally just being so scared and in my own head that I refused to try it or eat it or taste it, or that I would, but I went into it knowing I wasn't going to like it. There's hope for you. Maybe, not maybe, I know. If you want to, do a lot of pointing. If you want to, one day you can eat a lot of broccoli and want it and crave it and make some delicious, blend up some cashews, garlic, lemon, make a little cheese. Drizzle that over there. So basically for the first 2 decades of my life, I subsisted on eggs and cheese and peanut butter and bread and potatoes and rice and tortillas. And a lot of those things, for the majority of that time, weren't good peanut butter, good bread, and the Ina Garten good quality of things. It was Jif, and it was Wonder Bread, and it was stuff that, to say my real feelings, and sure they're judgmental, and that's all we're doing all the time. How to balance judging and not judging. They're not food. It's just you get to a point where things aren't food. Now, I've also gone to the point of hyper extremism of only eating very whole, very pure foods, and everything in moderation, moderation included. So I would say up until the end of high school for me. So for the first 18 years of my life, I ate no green things. I started incorporating Caesar salad, and that was a huge deal, to eat greens, to give you a show of it. And then in college, I got more into cooking, and I would put vegetables and things in muffins, or I'd find ways to incorporate it and get myself to eat these things that I still was like, eggs, cheese, grains, beige food. I'm gonna consume beige foods only. And then slowly, some more food started coming in, but it was a very, exponential curves, for a while. They go really slowly, and I was really impatient, and I still held on to this. I was like, one day you're gonna crave broccoli. And sure, part of me was like, bullshit, but part of me was like, no, this is what, one day you're gonna crave this. And so fast forward after college, what went vegan, what made me go vegan, what happened with that transition, getting into the meat, again, another fun or meat, beef fun of, or another, because I did that in another video, not in this video, already just talking to myself now. So I moved out to California after college, and I was working in a mouse neuroscience lab, and they study vision and brain plasticity, and I helped with the colony, managing the mouse colony. And I lasted 6 weeks in this lab before I totally broke down and was uninterested in handling it and having anything to do with them. I believe it would have happened eventually at any lab I was in. However, with this particular one, they were so disorganized that many of the mice that I was killing on a daily basis were never used for an experiment, because they were so disorganized with how they were planning and preparing their studies, that the colony was so big they had a lot more mice than they were accounting for. And I accept that not every mouse is going to be used in studies, especially with all of these fancy transgenic mice now, that, you know, that you're not going to use every single mouse because, you know, let's look at the 4 genes and where things come out, and maybe 25% of those mice are not going to be the right gene line for what you need for that study. As an aside here, I will say, having done that, I think there's a place for animal research when it comes to things like neuroanatomy and mapping, because there's things that, from an ethical standpoint, we're not going to do to humans that there are people who are willing to do to mice. I think besides that, I really don't, I see very little justification for animal research, in that it doesn't, the translation from animal to human seems really lacking, and part of that, I think, is the focus, is the publish or perish sort of mentality in academia of, you know, just gotta push and keep going and put something out, as opposed to, like, what will actually help humanity? Like, unfortunately, because of how academics are set up, it's, you know, oh, like, what study isn't out there yet, or what hasn't been done, as opposed to what is the research out there, and what's gonna really help humans and all of us, and how can we collectively move forward? So, another little side note there. While I was working in this lab and breaking the F down from killing mice, which, another side, you gotta do 2 methods of killing them, so you would CO2 and then cervically dislocate. And shout out to George for your help, for being my mouse guru. I would have been in there for 5 days if it wasn't for you. So if you ever see this, George, thank you. I was also taking biochemistry online. It was my last pre-med class, and I was taking it with UC Berkeley Extension School and learning about the biochemistry of nutrition. So I came into this perfect storm. Can you tell him the handsy dancing? I came into this perfect storm of learning about nutrition and learning about the biochemistry of what convinced me was of protein and of cholesterol. And I was working with mice and killing mice, and I think more than just the killing of them, which obviously was a huge part of it, I was seeing their living conditions. I was seeing what their life was like before they were killed, and that is where a lot of my stronger feelings on factory farming, I think, have come from. So with this perfect storm, and this eventually would have happened, I have no idea how much farther in the future it would have without these 2 events. But because of those 2 things, I decided, I know I'm a cheesehead, I know I'm a cheeseaholic, and I would say, oh, I'm a vegetarian and vegans are crazy because they won't eat cheese. I said, I'm going to let go of cheese. I'm going to let go of dairy for a couple days and see how I feel. And within 3 days, I felt so different that my body was uninterested in it. That it sounded unappealing. And then from there, going back to the exponential curve here, it started picking up more quickly in terms of other foods I ate. As I got rid of my option for just having an egg and cheese sandwich, I was like, what else can I put on toast? What else can I do or have or make? And avocado was a huge breakthrough for me, which maybe sounds silly, or maybe if you've dealt with picky eating, you understand when you have something and it's great and it just shifts your whole mindset of what have I been doing not, like where have I been? What have I been doing not eating this? Or like, I've been missing out on that for that long. And over my first year into transitioning plant-based, it was just eating more and more of these fruits and vegetables that for so long I had been uninterested in eating. And even with fruit, it's not even been a full year of me eating fruit like a quote normal person. Like I would only have fruit in smoothies, or I'd eat citrus, but the texture of eating most whole fruit was weird to me. And now like I'll sit with a bowl of, well, here less because I'm in Hawaii now, but I'd sit with like a bowl of berries in California and I would be like, what was I doing not enjoying this, holding myself back from all of this joy? Then transitioning into plants continues. I got to a point where my body really wanted raw foods, and I think because I spent most of my life eating a lot of processed stuff and a lot of grains, my body was like, And then I guess let me go back and also thank you to Indian food and lentils and those things, because I loved those, and then could put some vegetables and sneak things in, and that was a nice transition too, like rice and dal, put like spinach in there, put whatever in there. But back to the raw stuff, because cooked food is poisonous. Separate video. My body, I think, was so excited that I was finally giving it fruits and vegetables that it was like, that's all we're eating. Like, all you're gonna eat is fruits and vegetables. So I did that for a little bit, and then my body was like, hey, beans sound really good right now. And I was like, cool, we'll do that. So it's been a shift, and food is a journey for all of us. We all have wildly different backgrounds on what food we're eating in this very moment, and what food we've eaten growing up, and what food our parents ate, and what food their parents ate, and epigenetics. This is all like, it's more than just the hippy dippy shit, right? Your cells are metabolizing what you put into your mouth in order to create all the new cells that are coming all the time. This came from your parents and what they were eating, both during their life and at the time of your creation, and then that came from their parents and their parents, and so yeah, food's a big deal, it's fuel. And then back to raw, and people getting really like, oh, food is fuel and pure, and people who really see food as purely fuel, and you can go to that. I have gone to that extreme as well, and I'm finding that balance between it being fun and enjoyable, especially as I spent so much of my life really uninterested in it, being someone who eats to live as opposed to lives to eat, and then going to food being just fuel and being so serious about the nutrition of things and about no processed anything and blah blah blah, to being like, going out to a restaurant and having oil and salt and these things, I'm like, I'm still here, and I had a wonderful experience with my friends, and I got to enjoy a delicious lentil burger or whatever it was. And where I am now with food is kind of a 80-20 sort of a rule, which is that what you eat 80% of the time matters way more than what you eat 20% of the time. And obviously it's going to be different for different people. Like I said, we have all these different backgrounds. Different people want different amounts of cooked food or raw food, or different amounts of fat or protein, or, as I wanted to start with, different amounts of, if some people want some animal products, who is this body to look at your body and be like, hey, I know exactly what your body needs. Like, I'm figuring out what just this body needs, and I hope you are figuring out what that body needs, and I hope maybe that listening to me talk about mine can be helpful to you in figuring out yours and listening to yours. So, I guess the takeaways here are that pretty much everyone besides people who were raised vegan, which is a growing but small number of people, at one point said vegans were crazy, veganism is crazy, I'll never do that. And also I've been learning that a lot of people who used to, like, who really love broccoli, that's just the go-to example, at one point were like, that's crazy that that would taste good to someone. Like, you looked at people loving Brussels sprouts and they were like, you're faking it or you're whatever, and it is possible. Change is possible. And I mean that sarcastically and seriously. You control your everything. You make your habits. You choose what you eat, and I hope to encourage you to play. I like to tell people, you know, oh, like, try like a tofu scramble sometime, or try this or try that, and it isn't making, the example I use is making a tofu scramble once does not commit you to never eating an egg again for the rest of your life. You can experiment with different options and play and see what you think, and from someone who spent so long restricting myself from the play in both being really picky and then being really serious about it, my PSA is to play with your food. That's what we're gonna end, and by we I mean I'm gonna end this ramble on. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being you.